Okay, so hello out there. Is there anybody out there? I suppose is the first place to start. So if you are there and you can hear me, it looks like there's a few people there. So there's always a kind of a 20-30 second delay between where I am and where you are. So as soon as you hear me, if you would be kind enough to just pop a post into the comments, and then I know you can hear me. Let's just double check. Oh, Ashley Green. Hello, Ashley Green. You've got a picture there now, Ashley Green, if you're the same Ashley Green, but you might be another Ashley Green. So Ashley, it looks like at the moment, it's just you and I. So let's give everybody a few minutes. I started my advertising very late this week, so I am expecting it to be a bit of a quiet one, which is cool. I'm always happy with a more intimate session so I can get through everybody's questions. Hey, Henna V, how are you doing? I hope you're well. It's very warm in my office. I wish I could open the window, but then the sound quality becomes a disaster. So are you guys well? Ashley, Henna, I try and remember where you're from. Germany? Have I got that right? Ashley, where are you from? And we have Chanu. Hello, Chanu. How are you doing? Welcome. There can be only one. I know a film about that, Ashley. Oh, and Henna, you're coming in from India. Excellent. Oh, I'm very warm. Gosh. Yes, there are a few Ashley Greens, I think. I get you guys confused. So this Ashley Green, who is, of course, the only Ashley Green worth talking about, where are you coming to us from? Do you know, where are you coming from? Hello, Paul A. How are you doing? It's afternoon where I am. Oh, we've got Rich from Vancouver. That's awesome. What's the weather like in Vancouver, Rich? I always imagine it must be cold all the time in Canada. I always wondered whether I'd like living in Canada, but I'm a very cold person, so possibly not. Oh, Henna, I'm glad I'm not the only one who remembers the other Ashley Green. I promise you, Ashley, there are other Ashley Greens. I'm not just making it up. Okay, and Chanu, you're coming from India. That is awesome as well. Gosh, right. I think this is going to be a tiny session, possibly my smallest one yet, but that's my own fault for being distracted with my own life. Oh, you've got 80 degrees. Oh, you're the US Vancouver. Oh, okay. I didn't realize there are a couple of Vancouvers, but that's stupid of me because, of course, there are going to be multiple places with the same name. I'm from England, and there are so many places in the US that are named after where I'm from. I actually didn't realize that the original Boston is actually in the UK, and the Boston in the US is the name that they took over. How embarrassing. Nonetheless, okay. So we're going to have a small group today, guys. That's my fault. But hey, hopefully I can get through your questions and we can get into some good detail for you. So let me do the intro. I'm Gigi. I am the Amazon interview whiz. I am a former Amazonian and former Amazon interview bar raiser. I've hired hundreds of people for Amazon, tech, non-tech, various different countries around the globe. I do know what it takes to get hired at Amazon. I now run my own Amazon interview preparation academy. I am on a very clear and specific mission to make Amazon interview expertise accessible for all. If you've ever looked for it, Amazon one-to-one coaching, in fact, most one-to-one coaching is very expensive. And I felt a lot of people were going to be priced out of the market. So I decided to try and do something about it. My academy is a completely digital program, which means it's scalable, which means I can price it much more affordably. I have my YouTube channel where I give very, very clear, specific coaching advice, which I'm sure you guys have all seen by now, because I want it to be useful for people, even if they can't pay for expertise. And of course, I do these sessions regularly twice a week, and hopefully all of that wrapped up helps me achieve my mission for you guys. So what else is there to tell you? We are YouTube only today. No LinkedIn coming and joining us today. I have super badges and super stickers enabled so that you guys can make yourself visible to me, but you guys won't need that this week. We're going to be a pretty bijou group. Please hang around until the end because I have an awesome freebie for you, which I promise you will make a huge difference to your interview experience. The way we're going to run this, I will just look through the comments on the side, pick up your questions and attempt to answer them. I won't be able to answer very specific technical questions because there are about 300 different job families at Amazon and no one person can be a technical expert in all of those. But I am an expert in the leadership principles, which everybody has to deal with. And I'm, of course, an expert in the actual Amazon interview process and strategy, etc. Again, which all of you will have to deal with. So that said, I think let's just push on and we may be able to wrap this one up in about half an hour, having answered all of your questions. So I'm hoping there's a few of you out there with some good and interesting questions. Let me just say hello to Hema. Hello, Hema. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And Alekia, hello. Welcome back. It's nice to see you again. I hope you're well. All right. So guys, shoot. I have my very large cup of tea with me to keep me going. So fire away. And whilst you're thinking of questions to ask, I'll say I'll sing a song, but you don't want to hear me sing a song. And the last time I sang a song, I got hit by YouTube's copyright, which is a bit bizarre. I suppose you can do that. I think my singing was that accurate, but maybe they pick up on the words. So come on, guys, fire away. Ask me any questions, and we will see how we do for today. Pregnant pause, pregnant pause. Okay, Chanu, you did the online assessment for the post of quality specialist. Let's have a chat, Chanu, whilst other people are coming up with their questions. How did it go? What did you think of it? Oh, Ashley. All right. I'm going to put this up here, Ashley. You found me the day before your panel. I know. Breaking through that YouTube algorithm is a female dog. So whilst you guys are on YouTube, please do like and write comments on the stream. It really makes a difference. It helps it surface. It gives me credibility with the YouTube algorithm and hopefully gets me in front of people more than one day before their panel interview. I'm really sorry, Ashley, I didn't get to you beforehand. Glad it helped and you starting. So that's amazing. Congratulations. That's amazing. The Amazon interview process is tough, clearly, but it's not impossible. There are over 1 million employees working for Amazon, so it can be done. And clearly, Ashley, you nailed it. So you're more than welcome and congratulations. And I hope you have an amazing career. Learn lots of stuff that you will never forget in the rest of your career, I think. Well done. Really well done. Okay. Hema. Okay, let's ask this one. So you don't have experience directing dealing with customers, but there is a question on customer obsession. Yes. How would you be able to answer that? So you have to think, Hema, a little bit more creatively and laterally about who your customers are. So somebody somewhere is going to be using the output of what you do in order to be able to do something else. So if you were a recruiter, your customer would be the hiring manager because they're the person who consumes your output. If you were a finance manager, then your customer is going to be the business teams who you partner with to help them understand the P&L impact of the activities that you do. If you were a vendor manager, your customer is going to be actually the seller because that's the person who's going to be impacted by the things you do. So you just have to think a little bit more creatively, about who your customer is. The internal customer is as important when you're thinking about customer obsession as the external customer. So really ask yourself, Hema, when you have delivered something, whatever that thing is that's in the job space that you're in, who was the person that made use of that? Who had to consume it in order to be able to take the next step in the process, whatever that macro process might be? I hope that helped. Okay. Oh, we're light on questions today. Chanu, can I help you with the interview questions? You're going to have to be a bit more specific than that, I'm afraid. There are, last time I counted, which was when I left Amazon, there's like over 120 Amazon interview questions in the question bank. So yes, I can help, but you're going to have to be a little bit more specific than that. So please do have a think about more specific questions, and then I will try and answer them for you. Okay, what have we got next? Okay, Ishan, let me just read this. All right, Ishan. So you've been waiting to hear back from your panel interview for a month and 2 other interviews as well. No reply from candidate support either. Well, that's disappointing. You should have well and truly heard back by now in terms of the outcome of your panel interview if it was a month ago. The SLA that Amazon has is 5 working days. So you are well and truly over that. Ishan, if you can remember the names of the people that interviewed you, you should actually still have, well, you would have received, I assume, your email that gave you all of the instructions associated with your day at panel. And usually that includes the name of the interviewers. Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, right. Oh, I see. Right. I've misunderstood that. Okay. Let me just unhide that then. So, Ishan, your question. I wonder what that's going to look like on YouTube. Because you're waiting to hear back the final schedule, which is holding back your interviews for other roles at Amazon. Right. So I've given this advice to people before. I think this is a worthy strategy. Tell the people who you are interviewing for in the other roles, if you haven't already, that it is the first role that is holding them up. Because on the outside, it's very hard to knock down doors and get people to pay attention to you. But on the inside, if one team is holding up another team's processes, they've got much more leverage than you have to knock on their door and say, hey, can we hurry things up a bit, please? So my best advice to you, Ishan, is to get the other teams who the interviews are being held back for to contact the first team and get the first team to move, because the other teams are going to be equally as irritated and frustrated by not being able to. Nobody's replying. This is like an ongoing saga, Ishan. Well, right. Nobody's replying. You're at loop. You've spoken to somebody because you're at loop. You've had 1, maybe 2 interviews so far. So Ishan, have you tried contacting the people that you've already had your interviews with? Come back to me on that one. I feel this is like a soap opera that we're going through here. Right, I'm going to hide that one again, and you're going to tell me whether you've contacted the people that you've interviewed with already. Okay. Oh, right. So, sorry, I'm just being distracted by something. I don't know what this person's talking about, so they're going. Right. Hema, okay, we're just back to you when you were asking me about the internal customers. Yeah, just quickly put that one up there. Yeah. So you have been indirectly devolved in a handover for what was required for the customer. So yes, that's what you need to talk about. Whoever is the downstream consumer of what you're doing. Okay. Okay, let me just read this one from Shafali. Okay. So if Amazon is expecting specific analytical tool experience, which they will be in certain jobs, how do you answer it to make them believe you're a good learner and can grasp the technology with some initial training? Well, the first thing I would do, Shafali, is if you know what the gap is in terms of your technical skill set, then start learning now, because then you can go into the interview with at least some narrative around the fact that although you don't have specific experience in this area historically, you've actually started a course, started learning, why you're really enjoying the learning experience, and how much you would enjoy taking that learning experience forward in a more practical sense in this job in Amazon. And then, although you can't claim to have had the experience, they can see that you are enthusiastic, you're getting on the front of the curve. If there's any element of that training that you particularly enjoyed, you could maybe talk about that. So at least that's evidence of your ability to take ownership, to manage your own learn and be curious and your development, and you're on a track to getting that knowledge set that you need. That's really the only thing that you can do when it comes to having a technical and skills gap in your CV that needs filling. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Okay, any more questions, guys? Oh, it's absolutely roasting in here. So actually, whilst I've got you all here, just a curiosity from my point of view, and maybe as a filler whilst you guys think of any other questions that you have. We are a small group today. Have any of you been asked questions that you would imagine were from the new leadership principles? I'd be very curious, because as far as my knowledge goes, they are not being asked yet, but I'm keeping a close eye on it and was curious if anybody had those leadership principle questions. Shout out yes or no. That would be good to know. I'm going to take a swig of my drink whilst you guys think about that and come up with any new questions. It's going to be a long swig of my drink. You're a very quiet bunch today. Admittedly, you're not a huge bunch. My fault. All right, guys. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So you've got a 10-year gap, Chanu, and how will it affect my interview? Right. So if you've got an interview, Chanu, then they know you've got a 10-year gap and they're still interested in you. So you're going to need to a certain degree, be clear on what you've been doing with those 10 years. I don't know what you've been doing with those 10 years, but they're going to want to know that you haven't completely lost touch with the technical aspects of the field that you're applying for. I don't know whether you're applying for something that's exactly the same as the space you were in 10 years ago, or whether you're applying for something completely new and it's a career pivot. But what you'll want to be able to convince the interview panel is that you have either kept up to speed with your skills area over the course of those 10 years. So you won't be starting from nothing when you join. Or if it's a skills pivot, you're going to need to give them some comfort that you have those basic skills that they require, the transferable ones, to set you up in a good place for that current role. And then when it comes to the examples that you're going to need to use, you're going to have to go back 10 years. If you don't have a gap, if you've got a gap that's a 10-year gap, there's not very much you can do about it. But again, they've called you for interview, which means they think that 10-year gap is not a huge issue, because if they did, they wouldn't call you for interview. So use your examples from 10 years ago. If you have anything that's kind of still slightly professional related in the 10 years, then maybe use them. But do try and make sure that you can speak to how you have kept in touch, in the loop, educated on any changes in your particular field, skills area, etc., etc. But don't overthink about your 10-year gap. If it was such a problem, they wouldn't be calling you for interview. I hope that helps. Oh, Ganesh. Oh, you're back. Hello. I'm just going to pop you up there. Oh, thank you for coming. Oh, I was thinking about you only earlier today, and I was going to give you a ping and see how everything was moving on. I obviously won't say too much here, but I have been thinking about you. So if you want to give me a little bit more detail in the update offline, I'd love to hear it. Thank you for joining. I'm really, really pleased that you came, and thank you for the kind words. I'm deeply grateful. Okay, so what else do we have? Oh, it makes me happy to see friends. Your friends, I've never met you all, but you end up being my friends. Maybe that's just a sad reflection of my lonely life. I don't know. Okay. Okay. Right, so Matthew, so it looks like going through what everybody's saying, you're still not getting the new principles, which is what I had heard. So that is nice to get validation from the horse's mouth. Not that you're all horses, but still, I love a saying. Okay, Hema. All right. Yeah, quickly, I'll do this for you. So what are the new leadership principles? Where do you see them? Just go to the Amazon jobs portal. I do have them posted on my internet page, on my website. What's an internet page? My website, but it's easier just to Google the Amazon one. They rank slightly higher than I do, surprisingly. So just type Amazon leadership principles in Google. You'll find a result of very high in Google ranking that takes you straight to their page where all the leadership principles are, and they're down the bottom as the new leadership principles. They're big. That's a lot of words in those new leadership principles, but yeah, go there. I definitely think it's worth reading them and studying them, but as far as I'm aware, no one's being asked questions about them specifically. So you're not going to get a huge amount of material out in the broader world about those leadership principles. And any material that you do get is going to probably be broadly supposition on the part of people who are outside of the organization. Nonetheless, worth reading and worth wrapping your head around just in case, and definitely worth asking your recruiter before you go into your interview whether you will face any of those leadership principle questions. You know what they say about assuming? It makes an ass out of you and me. So never assume anything, regardless of what I or anybody else says. Ask your recruiter. Okie dokie. Okay. Hello, Jay Pafford. So you want to talk about scope and complexity. So I talk about my academy, I do, but you're not clear on how deep I'm expected to be. So I can't tell you how deep you're expected to be for a senior business analyst because I don't have that level of detail about everything a senior business analyst. Well, I do actually for a senior business analyst because I've worked very closely with business analysts, but more practically speaking, the best thing to do to try and understand the scope and complexity that you're going to have to face in the role, and therefore the scope and complexity of examples that you're going to need to pull forth, is to come up with really key questions that define the complexity of a senior business analyst role. So you've been a junior business analyst before, I'm assuming. You've worked with your own manager who, let's say, is a head of business analysis. So you've got a sense of where they were in terms of their scope and complexity. And therefore, some of the key things that at those different levels that are the variations between junior, mid, and senior. Define those questions and ask your recruiter to give you a sense of what that looks like in the role that you are interviewing for in Amazon, because that's the only real way to understand the scope and complexity of those roles. Because even I, who actually do have a good sense of the scope and complexity of senior business analysts, I've been out of the business for a year now. Most of the other people that you'll find doing what I do are not inside the business anymore. And what happens in Amazon is the bar goes up every year, and all of the more junior jobs get more scope and more challenges associated with them. as do the more senior roles, as do the more senior roles. So the scope and complexity of a role that I worked with an analyst a year ago is unlikely to be exactly the same scope and complexity of today. So really the best people to talk to are people on the inside, and that's going to be your recruiter. So think about what those key questions are. I do talk about in my academy what they were for me. So for me, they would be questions because I'm a marketer. They'd be questions about how much budget I have, how many channels I would need to be marketing in, how many campaigns I would do a year, how many countries are within my scope, how many languages are within my scope, how many people in my team, how many different teams I have to work directly with, so on and so forth. And I know if I get the answers to those questions, I will get the sense of the scope and complexity of the role. So if I was told I had to only do marketing for one location, English-speaking country, and I have a budget of 2 million, it would be a very different scope and complexity role if the answer was that I had to do marketing for 5 locations, 5 European languages, 4 campaigns a month, 4 campaigns a quarter for each of those locations, etc., etc. So that's really the only way to go about really understanding the scope and complexity. If you don't have that, then the blunt instrument is just bring your biggest and baddest. Bring the biggest examples you can come up with and try and leave the smaller ones behind. Good. I'm glad that's helpful, Jay Pafford. Appreciate it. Okie dokie. Let me just unshow you and see what else we have. Here's an interesting one. So you're motivated by the thought of sustainability. If you wanted to mention it using the recently added leadership principle, how accurate would it be? Okay, I think you mean how appropriate would it be? So if you can weave it into another leadership principle answer, that's not a bad idea. Again, if they're not asking questions on it, then they're probably not scoring on it. Again, can't say that to be absolutely true, but if they're not asking on it, I think they're unlikely to be scoring on it, because if they're not asking on it, then they haven't got questions in the leadership bank, which means they haven't yet defined what good looks like. Natural conclusion to draw. But there's no harm if you do have an example that you would use on another leadership principle that has elements of this focus on sustainability in it. Why not? No harm in using it. So I don't know that it would add to the outcome for you. Me specifically saying I do not know if it would add to the outcome for you. But if it's something you're particularly passionate about, if it makes sense to add to that other leadership principle, don't shoehorn it in. But if it makes sense, then put it in. Can't do any harm, I don't think. I hope that helps. Quick one for you, Shafali. I don't do CV reviews. That's not part of what I do, but there is a link in my LinkedIn profile which connects you to this amazing Facebook group where a whole bunch of recruiters mainly are offering some support for job seekers to help review their CVs. It's not a really, really deep service, unsurprisingly, because it's free, but they will cast their eye over your resume, CV, and give you some light feedback and tips on where you might want to make changes. So if you check out my LinkedIn profile in the About section, you'll see the link to that Facebook group. It's really generous. I would definitely make use of it, at least to get you going, and then you can decide whether you want to pay someone who does that for a living. But again, that's not generally a cheap service. So worth taking the free element first. Okay. Yeah, okay. Slav. So could I comment on the process for hiring a technical expert who's 60 years old? Yeah, it's the same process as for hiring somebody who's 25 years old. It's all exactly the same process. I don't believe there's any program specifically for people who have more years in there, more years behind them than ahead of them. So it's the normal process. If that's some kind of subtle coded way of asking me whether I believe there's any ageism associated with being hired at Amazon, not that I've ever experienced. And that's exactly why the leadership principles exist. That's exactly why the process exists as it does, with lots of different people on, excuse me. Now I'm going to have to sip my tea. Yes, with lots of people on the panel. It's exactly to get rid of any of that subconscious bias that is associated with one person being responsible for hiring another. So it's the same process, and you've got as good a chance as anybody else, maybe even more, because of that amount of experience that you have. Hopefully you have a really, really rich bank of experience to pull from, of really impressive examples. So good luck. I hope it goes well for you. Okay. Chinu, so although you have computer science background, you've applied for non-technical posts. What should your answer be if the interviewer asks me? I don't know, Chinu. What it's got to be your answer. So you ask yourself, why is it that you've decided to apply for a non-technical post, having come from a technical background? I can't provide you with that answer. You need to tell them the truth. Obviously, you want the truth crafted in a positive and appealing way for that interviewer, so they feel that you are headed in that direction for good reasons, and you're going to end up being happy and fulfilled in that role. But only you know the answer to that question, Chinu. So I'd sit down and do a little bit of self-reflection on why it is you found yourself in this situation, wanted to apply for a non-technical role, and then craft it into a nice narrative, and it will be the right answer. I hope that's helpful. Oh, okay. Laura, such a good question, Laura. Thank you for asking this one. So you passed your first interviewer and you have 6 more to go, and you don't want to continue without knowing the salary for the role. Excellent perspective to have. You've asked the recruiter for salary range and she avoided the question. What should you do? I think you should tell them exactly what you've just told me, Laura, which is you don't want to continue this process, as keen as you are on the role, because it looks very exciting, without understanding what the salary range is. And the reason why is you have a requirement in terms of a range, and you don't want to waste your or anybody else's time going through the whole process if Amazon isn't able to meet that salary range, because that would be super inefficient for them and super inefficient for you. Just say, just say it exactly as you did to me. I think you're doing exactly the right thing. And just, if you feel she's avoiding it, I'm saying she, actually, that's a huge assumption. There are plenty of just as many male recruiters. Oh, you said he avoided the question, and I wasn't reading properly either. You might even just say politely, I kind of get the feeling that you're not comfortable talking about the salary range here. Please don't be. I've done my homework. I understand, that you cannot give me too much detail, but please, I would really appreciate to know what the range is, because I don't feel comfortable proceeding without you knowing what my point of view is and me understanding what the range is for the role. If you put it nicely like that, they should have no reason to refuse. There's just no point in you going through the whole process for them or for you without knowing that it's going to be able to hit the mark for you. But you know that, right? I'm preaching to the converted here. It's the recruiter, he, that you are trying to convince. So I hope that's helpful in some way. Okay. Oh, Will. Oh, that's such a cute picture, Will, as well. That's so sweet. So you've got an offer and you start on August the 2nd. That is fantastic. You are absolutely welcome for the help. And yeah, I'm delighted I was able to help you. So congratulations, and I hope it's a fantastic career for you and takes your family where you want it to go. So congrats. Such a cute picture. Okay. Okay, Selvi. Okay. Can I confirm whether a systems design interview will be based on the experience you had from a technology perspective, or they might go deep into technologies that they use that I've never used? Well, I can't confirm exactly what you're going to have at your interview. Different teams do it differently. And as I said at the start of the session, I cannot be a technical expert in every single job family. There's over 300 of them. But I think you can expect that somebody is going to want to do quite a deep probe in terms of your technical experience and your expertise. It might take the form of a proper technical assessment where you're asked to write some kind of a technical document. It might be somebody asking you questions about how you might go about doing something. But one way or another, they're going to want to test your skills to be confident that you can do the job that they need you to do. So know your technical stuff. Be prepared to answer those types of technical questions. You will definitely also have the behavioral questions. Both of those will happen. But without question, someone's going to want to probe and dig around and make sure that you have the technical competencies. I hope that helps. Okay. Okay, Shan, right. So we're going back to our conversation. So since you're not hearing back, should you just give up? Ishan, that's up to you. You've got to decide whether it's worth burning your energy on or not. How much of a difference it's going to make, I couldn't tell you. So that's just your personal approach to life. Somebody might just choose to keep hammering away and keep hammering away. Other people might choose not to. So that's kind of up to you, I think. If you do keep knocking on doors and hammering away, I don't think anyone's going to think any less of you. You know, you're entirely within your right, having gone through the interview process, to try and find out what's going on. So I don't think anyone's going to think less of you, but I think only you can really decide how much of your energy you want to expend on that effort. Okay, what else have we got? Oh, Zane. Yes, I do have tips on nerves. So I have a video on my YouTube channel about approach to nerves. And I talk about it quite specifically because I have a particular response to nerves. I have what's called an essential tremor. And I don't know if you can see, you probably can't see there, but my hands are very unsteady. And when I get nervous and the adrenaline starts pumping through my body, my hands literally start to shake. And if I lift a glass of water, it's like this. So I decided to do a video about nerves. So go check that one out. That I hope will help you. There's a few key tips in there in terms of how I've dealt with my nerves at interviews and how some candidates who I've interviewed have dealt with their nerves. So go check out that video. I think it will be quite useful for you. Good luck. Breathe, breathe. My one big tip that I'll give you before I send you off to go look at the video is to try and reframe your mind. I know it's really hard, but try and reframe your mind and think about the fact that the people that are interviewing you really want you to do well. A lot of people go into interviews kind of with a mentality that it's some kind of a combatant situation and that the interviewer is there to try and trip you up and that it's some kind of a battle of wills between the two of you. It is definitely not the case in Amazon. The reason being is interviewing at Amazon takes up the most enormous amount of your time. It really, really does. To interview just one candidate, you've got probably only, let's say, 5 minutes to read their resume, but you're going to be preparing what you're going to ask them for another 10 minutes. That's 15. Then you're going to be interviewing them. So that's between 45 minutes and an hour. So best case scenario, you've already invested an hour. Then you've got to write up your notes. Depending on how quick you are at writing up notes, I'm very slow, other people are faster. So between half an hour and an hour. So let's call that 45 minutes. So for at least one interview, just one, you're committing an hour and 45 minutes. When you do that twice a week, which plenty of Amazonians do, that's quite a lot of time. Then you're into debriefs, etc., 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 if they've gone all the way through to loop. So you really, really want your time to be well invested. You go into every single interview praying that this is the person that you're going to be able to give the role to, because if it is, then you can stop interviewing on that role. And that's what everybody wants to do. They just want to stop interviewing on that role so they can get on with their job. And I'll ideally have this person come in and sit on a seat and do some work and take some load off them. So all of your interviewers in Amazon are your friends, and they definitely go into the interview with the mentality that they want you to succeed. And if you can really kind of try and internalize that and reframe, I hope that that can materially help in terms of nerves. That aside, please do go and check out the video because there are some other ideas in there as well. So good luck, and breathe, Zane, breathe. Okay. Okay, Laura, I will come to yours in a minute. I've just read all different parts of it, so I'm just going to work my way down, and then when I hit it at the bottom, I will summarize up what you've had before. Okay. Okay, quickly for you, Alessandro. So you've got an SHL numerical test. Where can you prepare for it? So I don't offer any preparation for SHL, but I have spotted on the web, as one does, a number of other sites and companies that offer these type of SHL preparation test packages. So I can't quote them for you specifically because it's not an area of my interest, and therefore I haven't internalized who they are. But you can just literally Google SHL numerical test, and a few of those websites will pop up pretty high up in terms of the search. So I suggest you do that if you want to have a practice. Okay, right, Rahul, and then Laura, I'm on to yours after Rahul. So is it important to mention stories that are relevant exactly to the role at Amazon? That's a good question. So in an ideal world, you should do that. If you do have examples that fit very, very closely to the type of work that this role is all about at Amazon, then it's a good idea to do that if they're strong examples, because then you can tick in terms of strength and leadership principles, and you can tick in terms of your particular experience and kind of capabilities for that role. If you don't have good examples that you feel really good about that are bar raising, or at least to the best of your knowledge could be bar raising leadership principle examples, but they are tick on the technical, my gut would tell me to steer away from them. You are, I think, much better to focus on having really strong leadership examples. Technical stuff can be taught, it can be, but the leadership principles are the criteria which you are being judged for when it comes to the hiring decision. So if you don't have good leadership principle examples that do match the role, I'd bias towards prioritizing your good leadership principle examples that are specific to maybe roles that aren't an exact technical match, but where the skills and what you've learned and the behaviors are transferable. A mix of the two is what usually you get, to be honest with you, with candidates, because sometimes they're exact matches. Like people who have been sales account managers quite often tend to have always been sales account managers. So it's easy for them to do a match. Other people, their roles tend to not be such completely exact matches, because Amazon's is a little bit unusual sometimes in terms of how they create roles. They're quite often a mix of the types of roles that you'd see in other organizations. So historically speaking, based on my experience, the majority of candidates will bring a mix to the table. Some are exact technical match examples, and some are not exact technical match, but they are transferable in terms of the skills, the knowledge, and the behaviors. I hope that's helpful. It is like a sauna in my office. Okay. So, Laura, you had an interview for a partner manager role. Let me just put the last question up. You had an interview for a partner manager role. You got past round 1, but then the role got filled. Yep, happens all the time. Is it possible to go through all the stages and be offered an account manager role for a different part of the business if the original position got filled? So, yes, it is. So what can happen is you go all the way through and you get pipped at the post. It's pretty rare, because usually what they would do is, as soon as someone is offered the role and accepts it, they close the job. And more likely than not, everybody else wouldn't have made it to Loop yet, unless you were at Loop like the day after that person. And if you imagine the debrief was 2 days after that person had their interview, or 3 days after, the statistical likelihood of you being kind of squeezed in between those is relatively rare, but it does happen. So let's play with your scenario where they went to Loop on the Monday, you went to Loop on the Tuesday, they did the debrief on the Wednesday for the person on the Monday and decided that person's bar raising. Then they've got a debrief for you on the Thursday and they think you're bar raising too. What they might do is hold off making a decision on the Wednesday and wait until the Thursday to do your debrief, do the 2 debriefs. And if they decide you're both bar raising, decide which one they like better. And then if that happens, and this is a really kind of outside odds scenario here, but I'll play it through anyway. If that happens, if they think you're really, really strong, what the bar raiser will likely do is speak to the recruiter and ask the recruiter to go out into the broader organization. Given it's an account management role, that's a relatively, I won't say generic, but it's a relatively common type role in lots of different business units in Amazon. So they will instruct the recruiter to put some effort into seeing if they can find you another account management role that's open in another team. If you've been a bar raiser, what they should be able to do, not bar raising, if you were bar raising, what they should be able to do is show that team your notes. If they want to speak to you, what they can probably do is bypass the process, bypass going through interview stages and loops again, and maybe just meet with the hiring manager of that other team who are recruiting an account manager, and you could get a role that way. But it's kind of an outside, statistically speaking, kind of set of circumstances that we've just described there. You would have to be having your loop very, very close to the loop before you. But I hope that answers your question. I don't know if it comes from a specific place or whether it was just a kind of a curiosity for a potential scenario that you could imagine in your head. Okay. Let's just do a quick time check. Okay. Oh, we've done quite well, actually. We've only got 12 minutes left. Okay. So here we go. How are the numbers of face-to-face interview rounds decided for particular candidates? As observed, they vary for different candidates applying for the same position. That shouldn't be the case, Tanya. So it should not be the case that you have a different number of interviewers on the loop, because you're talking about face-to-face, which doesn't happen anymore, but it only used to happen at Loop. Well, it used to be called on-site. So I'm going to assume you're talking about final round. It should not vary between candidates who are applying for the same position. It should be pretty standardized in a particular role. Now, if you're applying for a kind of the same branded role, let's say a vendor manager, and you're applying for a vendor manager in one part of the business and then a vendor manager role in another part of the business, I guess therein could lie the variability. But once you've got a rec, the job open for, let's call it senior vendor manager in hard lines, everybody who's going for senior vendor manager in hard lines, job number 1, 2, 3, everybody that's going through the interview process for senior vendor manager hardline job number 1, 2, 3 will go through the exact same experience. So they are not deciding on the basis of you as the candidate. They have predetermined based on the job, senior vendor manager hardlines job number 1, 2, 3. And then that's how they are locking in the parameters of the interview process. And everybody that applies for that role goes through that interview process. Exactly why some teams, if it's a vendor manager in hardlines compared to, I don't know, a vendor manager in audio, Prime Video, books, whatever it might be, exactly how and why one team determines they should have 5 on a loop and another team determines they should have 6. I've got to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows inside Amazon. It's kind of based broadly on the levels of the role that you're applying for, the complexity, etc., etc. Doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. The team just has to be comfortable that they're going to get the right data, and it has to be consistent for everybody that's going through that particular rec. I hope that was helpful, Tanya. Oh, Ishan. Yeah, I'll quickly finish off this conversation with Ishan. Yes, I'm glad you've decided to follow up, Ishan. I would, to be honest with you, if it was me. And there's no such thing as taking a hint, right? There should never be any hints in a job application recruitment process. Any company who spends the time interviewing and asks you for your time for preparation, which is usually a lot of time, and time for interview, should give you a straight answer. So there's no hints going on here. And if someone thinks that that's the way to let you know that this is not happening, then they're absolutely wrong in terms of what the process should be at Amazon. So there's no hints. Don't accept hints. If you want to know the answer, you go get that answer. Can't promise you, of course, but if it was me, I'd keep knocking and find all sorts of different pathways. So good luck, Ishan. I hope you get your answer. Okay. And let's have a quick look. Okay. Okay, right. Okay, sorry. I was thinking about that, Tanya. I wasn't sure I understood your question, but I do now. So are successive interview rounds in the loop dependent on the feedback from the previous interview round? Or will you get to know the final result after my last round, the hiring manager? Yeah, it's all just one package, Tanya. So once you are at final round, you are at final round, and you have to go through every single one of the interviews at final round. And then the debrief, and the purpose of the debrief is to look at all of that data. So it's about being successful overall. It's not about being successful just in one interview to allow you to get to the next stage. Stages are over once you're at the final stage. It's like different interviews in order to gather the broadest set of data. And then debrief is about bringing all of that data together, picking through it, discussing it, and coming up with a considered outcome based on all of that data, on the assumption that all of that data is equal and valid in terms of its credibility, whether it came from the hiring manager or whether it came from someone in the team or whether it came from the bar raiser. Everybody's data carries as much weight as anybody else's. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Right, okay. So I'm back to now reading yours, Laura. Oh yeah, Laura. Yeah. Right. So you've had a successive number of you keep getting through first round and then the roles get filled. Yeah, that's fine. Or I mean, there's no limit to the number of roles that you can be considered for. if you're passing through round after round, first round after first round, but you're just unfortunate that other people are pipping you to the post, there's no reason why you can't keep going. At some point, you'll be the person that pips everybody else to the post. So keep applying, Laura. Like you say, there are so many different roles around the organization. Just keep applying. It might be a little bit frustrating getting through first round after first round, but you will, at some point, the odds will be in your favor in terms of timing. So keep going. Keep going. Okay. Richard, you're welcome. Thank you for that. Okay, let's just try and pick. I'm just going to try and pick on some people that I haven't had a chance to cover before. So let me just spin up, make sure I haven't covered this person. Okay, so this is a new person. Oh, sorry, guys, my contacts have just decided to go swimming. Right, sorry about that. I don't often wear contacts, and I've got them in today, and I'm not a fan. So let's just have a quick look. Okay, so Tara, let me just have a read of this. Okay, right. So I'm just going to put the last bit in, Tara. So the backstory goes that you've passed round 2, but it's taken a long time because interviews kept getting cancelled and rescheduled, and you're wondering whether Amazon can cut the process to hire a candidate if the candidate's had an offer already elsewhere. So they can't cut the process. They won't take steps out because, as I said earlier, everybody has to go through who's doing the same interview, for senior, vendor, manager, hard lines, job 1, rec 1, 2, 3. Everybody's going through that flow has to have exactly the same experience. Otherwise, it would not be fair. But what can be done is, if your recruiter knows and believes that you have other offers out there, is what they could do is chivvy the team on a bit more and say, look, guys, come on. This is a good candidate, and we're going to lose them if we don't get ourselves organized and into gear. So that type of a narrative sometimes creates a little bit more momentum in your interview panel. I keep doing that. This is a whole new direction for me, and I'm such a gesticulator. It might create more momentum in the interview panel and a bit more commitment to giving time for the recruiting coordinator to organize in their diaries. So no is the short answer. They cannot change the steps in the process. But yes, sometimes that information does stick rockets in places where rockets maybe need to be in order to be able to get the process expedited. I hope that's helpful. Okay. Okay, Shakib, I'm trying to find the second part of yours. Oh, Shakib, bless you. Okay, right. I'll do the second part of this. So you did an interview, you had a loop, and then you got your feedback was that your profile aligns better to other positions. And then the recruiter mentioned she'd be happy to connect you for other opportunities, and you've already applied for other 3. Is this a normal scenario? You're not sure if they're being polite. To Amazon's credit, they don't do be polite for the sake of being polite. It's just not efficient. If your recruiter really didn't think that there was any point in connecting you with other teams, then they just wouldn't say it. They'd just say, thank you, no thank you, you're not for us. Close the door, goodbye, nice meeting you. But that's not happening. They have a sense that you would be better in other types of role, and she's going to do what she can. Now, bearing in mind that that's no longer going to be a tick in her performance. And it is a she. Make sure I double check that she's going to be tasked in filling that particular role. So she'll do some effort to try and help connect you to other opportunities, but she's not going to effectively be headhunting roles for you or hunting roles for you and working really, really hard to land you a role. Recruiters in Amazon find people for roles, not roles for people. But if she'd offered to help you, then she's being sincere, and you should take advantage of it to the degree that they're willing to do it. But Amazon doesn't do polite for polite's sake. It's not efficient. So consider it a compliment that they think you're worth still investing more effort in. Okay, let's see. How long have we got left? Oh, we are at time. We're at time. I'm just going to see if I can find one more that I think will be helpful to everybody. Okay. Oh, Pierre, quickly, everyone. Pierre, congratulations. Pierre, I recognize your logo. So you've been here before. So you are more than welcome. Congratulations. I love it when I have people come along and say they've managed to get jobs. So congrats. I'm glad I was able to help. You are absolutely more than welcome. Okay, so I'm going to finish with Zane's question here. I'm sorry, there's a few people below that I'm not going to get to today, but I will be back again on Wednesday, so you can always come back then. So on average, how many people would be invited to the loop stage for a position? Would you be up against many others, or do they take one candidate at a time to make a decision of yes or no? So Zane, it's a concept called first past the post. So it's just a conveyor belt, and everybody gets on the conveyor belt at a different time. And it's the first person who makes it to the end of the conveyor belt. So if you imagine parcels going onto the conveyor belt, do you like this analogy? I'm quite impressed with this analogy. Little parcels going onto the conveyor belt. At the end, there's the delivery truck, and the parcels are going on and going on. And then some parcels get kind of pushed off the conveyor belt for one reason or another. And it's the first parcel to make it into the delivery truck that gets the job. And that's the way it works. So there is often an advantage to being agile in terms of getting your interviews in as early as they can make them available to you. Obviously, that comes with a risk, because you also need to make sure that you've had enough time to prepare. So you just need to weigh up the pros and cons of how much time do I need to prepare versus how much time do I think is safe to leave running in case there's someone ahead of me in the process. What I often do or suggest you do is maybe ask the recruiter how strong their pipeline is. They're never going to tell you there's 3 candidates ahead of you, but they might give you a little bit of a sense of, yeah, we're quite far along with a couple of candidates. That might just be enough to help you make a decision as to how bullish you're going to be about how near you're going to take a slot for your interview. So got it. So guys, thank you, Ashley. Like and share. Let's help Gigi with the YouTube algorithm. Yay, Ashley. Like and share. Help me with the YouTube algorithm. I don't know if you guys have YouTube channels, but man, but we won't go there for now. So thank you, Ashley. I appreciate the support there. Right, guys, I did say at the beginning I was going to give you an amazing freebie, and I am going to give you an amazing freebie. So here it is. I'm offering every single one of you, if you go to the Amazon Interview Wiz Academy, a free customer obsession masterclass from my academy. I do it because obviously I want you guys to look at my content and like it and buy some more. But I also do it because every single one of you, if you make it through to Loop, will get asked customer obsession. No question. Everybody who goes through the entire process will definitely get customer obsession. So as I say, my mission is to make Amazon interview expertise accessible to everybody, and that is the best gift that I can give you. So please head on down there. I don't do follow-up marketing. I don't use it to capture your email address so I can chase you down. I'm a marketer. I know it's weird, but I don't do that. So please go take it. It's free. It's a gift. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it helps you. Okay, so I think that's everything. On that note, then, I will be back again on Wednesday. So I'm sorry if I didn't get to your questions this time. Please come back and I will try again on Wednesday. Until then, please be safe, everybody. And to the guys who got jobs, Ganesh and I can't remember everybody else, but the other guys, I remember Ganesh because he's one of my academy people. Thank you so much and congratulations. And I wish you the very, very best and amazing career for you with interviews coming up. Fingers crossed, as always. If you have further questions, you can always ask questions about my videos on YouTube. I really do try and answer everybody within about 24 hours. Be safe, everybody. Take care. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bye-bye.